When the objective for the day is catching as many trains as possible, it pays to get out early, especially on weekdays, to beat the traffic on the roads, to see the traffic on the rails. We're up early this morning, heading south towards Tampa just before sunrise on yet another cool November morning. It's Friday, November 10th, 2023, and in observance of this year's Veterans Day, I'd get the day off from school, presenting a perfect day for railfanning. Driving into Tampa, I'd hear the JF dispatcher giving B339 signals out of East Tampa northbound to head into the Bone Valley via the S-Line to Valrico. So I'd pull into TS Crossing, the southern entrance to Yeoman Yard off the Tampa Terminal and Palmetto subs, where B339 would have to pass. Checking the signals here at State Road 60, a yellow approach would await 339, quickly upgrading to a high green as he rapidly approached. Except for the handful of cars passing by on State Road 60, all is quiet at TS as the sun begins to brighten the sky to the east. We're a week past daylight savings, making this shot with the first light of day possible at 6:18 a.m. B339 would have the usual CM44s for power today, with a string of wet rock open hoppers, returning to the Bone Valley empty to be loaded with wet rock phosphate at Mosaic's Four Corners mine, accessed by CSX's Ag Rock facilities. With the end of 339 by, I'd swing around the block to 50th Street, where the southernmost portion of the S-Line enters Yeoman Yard after becoming a single Yardmaster-controlled track just west of the crossing. Although not designated as a main line anymore, the tracks stay relatively busy, with locals and ethanol trains to Hooker's Point and locals off the Brooksville and Clearwater subs, like this R642, returning engines light from Drew Park after dropping a cut of auto racks at the facility pre-dawn.
779 Yeoman.
Between locals and yard jobs departing and arriving out of Yeoman Yard, Tampa is usually pretty busy on weekday mornings, and today would be no exception. From 50th Street, we'd hop on I-4 and drive out east, as we heard L779 departing YN for Plant City, with orders to go down the Plant City sub to switch a few customers. Hearing a couple other trains in the general area would prompt the drive towards Plant City, with a stop in downtown, catching 779 with moments to spare. "779 would be switching south of town for the next hour or so we'd continue east towards Lakeland, where there's seldom a lull of traffic. North of Lakeland 9 miles is Kathleen, known as CP Kathleen for rail fans along this Vitus sub. We'd be camped out here staring at a high green as a southbound freight would be calling signals just north of us on the S-Line. L762, a daily local out of Winston, would also be heading our way, so the JA dispatcher would hold him at 10th Street for train M457, southbound freight for Taft Orlando out of Waycross, and obviously running a bit late this day, seen in any kind of daylight down here, clearing Kathleen at 8:13 a.m. Today's 457 would not be large by any standards, clocking the DD at Stokes at only 4,500 feet, relatively small compared to his usual length. It'd make for an easy day for the crew, however, as they were told by dispatch to pick up the pace as a train was waiting for them at Auburndale.
No defects. Repeat, no defects. Total axles 160. Detector out.
M457, no defects, 849.7.
After grabbing some breakfast at a deli in downtown, I'd pull into the Lakeland Amtrak station as the second train that was in Auburndale now approached. Yellow over yellow is an advanced approach on the CSX, telling the crew to be prepared to stop at the second signal ahead, that being North Winston Y, where our train, M452, was to cross over to track 2 to enter Winston Yard. In a couple minutes, 452 would appear, and with 2 locomotives wide open, cresting the hill in downtown with 148 cars in trail. M452 has become one of the most reliable mid-morning trains in this area, coming into Winston anytime between 6 and 9 a.m. and departing a handful of hours later around lunchtime. For the time being, 452 would be pulling into Winston as the Lakeland crew awaited the Miami crew in the yard. Well, folks, what just happened now is something that happens all the time during rail fanning. You're set up in one location waiting for something, and then something more appealing pops up. So we were just in Lakeland, but I hopped on I-4, and we are in Plant City now, the graveyard. And behind me is South End Plant City. That's the south end of this siding here, just north of downtown. And we have a double yellow, so an approach, advance approach, for B631. Now this guy has been coming down the S line all morning, and he should be here pretty soon. I believe he's getting that double yellow because of a track maintainer just past downtown. So once he clears up, he'll get that green. But for now, I think he's only a couple miles away. In a couple minutes, the high rail would clearing the blocks ahead, upgrading the signal to green as B631 came into view. I've been wanting to try this shot at the cemetery for a while now, as at 10 in the morning the lighting for a southbound is just about perfect, making for a nice scene as 2 pumpkins and an NS-9 break the monotony of CSX power.
260 B63106 has a clear south into Plant City, BNSF 6678, south out.
As you probably know by now, B631 is ethanol loads off the Canadian Pacific in Chicago, although there's only CP power on this train about half the time. Since the majority of Class 1 railroads access Chicago and its many yards, foreign power is a very good bet on these ethanol trains, and today would be no different. All morning, I'd be keeping an eye on southbound train M603, who had come south earlier in the morning and had tied down at night following the B631. However, a picture from a friend revealed the train to be sitting on the main line, not tied down in the siding, meaning instead of actually tying down and leaving the train, 603 was just waiting for a signal to proceed to Winston. With this in mind, we drive around to the A line as local L780 was completing his duties at 84 Lumber, known as Park Road, to cruise. Pulling up to a high green lit for him at Plant City holdout, 780 would be revving up, heading to Cherry to switch a couple customers on the main line.
780, 10,
6562 clear. Plant City hold out. Fast approach. Plant City and locking. Southbound.
Amtrak 91 was now in the picture, following 780 towards Tampa, meaning 603 wouldn't be going anywhere soon. So with some chatter coming from the Bone Valley, we'd skip down to Nicholls, where L770 was switching the Limehouse.
Get you on the hand signals. Plenty of room. Good for 15, 960.
Alright, on the hand, 960.
This is Loist North America's Nicholls plant that is switched almost every day by 770, the mulberry-based switcher. The hoppers that 770 is shoving into the spur now are loaded to the brim with lime, a natural mineral valued for its disinfecting properties, commonly found in cleaners of all kinds. Today, one engine is all 770 needs to get the job done, as they spot their drop-offs under the unloader and get on their way back to Mulberry, shoving their 2 empty hoppers and the conductor back around the corner to the yard.
Switch it to SV 837.7 stored normal. 1055 RW.
Drifting back into Lakeland, we'd hear M452 giving their job briefing to the dispatcher in preparation to leave northbound, so we'd set up at South Lakeland as the train crawled up the hill.
All head-end power, TO'd and PO'd and no DP and calendar day SP, is that correct?
That is correct. That's what I said.
Alright, buddy. Hey, y'all have a good trip back home. See no indications. Permission to pull from where you stand.
Although the end of the conversation sounded like 452 was good to go, he'd have to wait on Amtrak 91, now coming out of Tampa, with a full head of steam as he slows for his Lakeland station stop.
Clear South Lakeland. Clear Lakeland connection. Arrive in Lakeland.
With 91 gone with the wind, 452 gets his signal to depart, notching up his 2 GE motors to get his train up and over the hill. From the inbound shot we got of this train this morning, 452 has dropped over half of his rock and all of his freight and picked up a sizable cut of auto racks from Palm Center. All in all, he's just 20 cars less than what he was this morning, dropping the rest of his rock at Wildwood, destined anywhere between Coleman and Ocala. Following 452 up the hill northbound would be Y191, a yard job out of Winston for Park Spur, 4 miles east of downtown, where he'd be switching a couple sizable customers that still remain on the spur today. CSX 4292 would be on the job today, providing plenty of horsepower for the relatively short job this afternoon. With 452 and 191 now out of the yard, it would finally be M603's turn with signals to enter Winston via the Plant City connection. Hearing this, we'd begin driving west until we'd intercept, eventually pulling off at a small crossing just west of County Line Road, where 603 had picked up some speed after making the 90-degree turn onto the A line at 10 miles per hour. The obvious craze around this train would be for the 2 Florida Central units in Trail, supposedly for FCEN's Eagle Lake branch near Winter Haven. The 2 Jeep 15s being delivered today are novelties, painted in the classic black and yellow Seaboard coastline scheme, lettered for the short line. With their small frame and shiny paint, these are bound to attract rail fans from everywhere, myself included. I'm currently planning a day in the next month or so to head down to the branch and chase these units once they're put into service. With 603 now into Winston, we head back to Lakeland, meeting up with my friend Dakota at Plant City. On the drive back, Amtrak 92 would be heading into Tampa as M453 shoved his train into the yard. By the time we got to Winston, 453 had already cut off from his train and was now spinning his engines on the Y. With permission from the dispatcher and yardmaster to re-enter Winston, a restricting signal would be illuminated for 453, which is all the crew needs to see before backing into the yard and continuing their switching duties.
It's 483-189, Y191-10, and 4292, plate WF Prime, relation to all tracks, that's Park Spur, mile post 82.
It was about 5:30 now, and Y191 had completed their duties at Park Spur, now ready to return to Winston with 3 boxcars in tow. And with 92 just now departing Tampa and heading north, the dispatcher would give 191 signals to return south, making for a beautiful scene as the train crawls towards the sunset. We knew of a couple more trains coming our way, one of them being this Amtrak 92 with a now commonplace Charger and Trail. These have infested the Silver Service in the past month or so, and it's only a matter of time before they start leading trains down here. Once 92 was by, we'd continue into downtown Plant City, where once again radio chatter and a signal call out would hint at a northbound train, only a few minutes away now. Following 92 north would be nightly intermodal I-044, today with a respectable cut of Tropicana reefers at the head end, with another 5,000 feet of intermodal in trail. Looking down the A-line towards Tampa, a green signal would be lit at the north end of Cherry Siding for a southbound train just after 7 p.m. Meeting the I-044 at Winston would be a very early L778, who had already gone to Winston light engines earlier in the day. Now the train had picked up 91 cars to take back to Tampa, about 4 hours ahead of their normal schedule. 778 would be coming down the hill shortly to our delight, so I'd set up for a shot of the train racing south over the diamonds. What makes today's 778 somewhat special is the fact that this train is usually still in Tampa at this time most nights, assembling their train from the Navy Spur just north of Ybor City. So to be returning to Tampa now, passing Plant City at 7:09 p.m. this day, would be very convenient for us, a handful of hours earlier than normal. Grabbing dinner and heading to Lakeland, we knew of two last trains on their way, so we'd set up at Lakeland Junction and begin our wait. First up would be our southbound, lighting up an approach medium on the signal bridge here at the junction. Rounding the curve with priority intermodal for Tampa would be I-045 with a few World Direct containers up front, a new customer on these Tampa intermodal trains. Word has it that these World Direct containers are loaded and unloaded at Port Manatee, down south of Tampa Bay along the Palmetto Sub. I'm not entirely sure if a local is picking up these well cars from the port and taking them to Uceda, or if the containers are trucked to Uceda before going onto rails. But for now, the most I've seen is only 5 well car sets at a time. However, I wouldn't doubt that in the near future, Palmetto Sub locals will start handling small cuts of intermodal in and out of Port Manatee if the business grows enough and if they haven't started already.
Next 327, clear signal Lakeland Junction, northbound now.
5 minutes pass and our last train of this eventful day has come, calling as I-17810, intermodal out of the Winter Haven Intermodal Logistics Center to Jacksonville. This train is by far the biggest intermodal train in Central Florida, and tonight was no disappointment, with 2 engines and 13,000 feet of freight behind the drawbar. With I-178 continuing north into the night, we'd head for home after quite the day out. Thanks to all who've stayed till the end of this one. I really do appreciate all the viewers and subscribers on this channel, and I really hope you all enjoy the content that I've been putting up too. But until we meet again somewhere trackside, happy Thanksgiving everyone. End of transmission.